how much of improvement should I expect to get using a sophisticated system like yours?
That's a good question. It's very hard to quantify, right? Because things change very quickly and they change on a day by day basis. So my expectation is in the initial month, you'd see a single digit, double digit improvement, but it's hard to quantify beyond that because the market changes very quickly.
Right, sure. No, I know nothing can be specific in marketing. It's just like a stock market. Hi, this is Hamid Kohan. I'm the president and CEO of LegalSoft and also lawpractice.ai. And we're happy to have this session today with Chip, who is our guest today. And welcome to the episode, Chip.
Thanks so much, Hamid. Chip LaFleur. I'm the CEO of LaFleur One Inc., which also controls LaFleur Marketing. I've been in the marketing space, the legal marketing space, for about probably 15 years, marketing about 20, 25, something like that. Published a book through Trial Guides a few years back, Digital Marketing for Lawyers. They did not give us a lot of flexibility on the titling. They said that lawyers are very literal, so we went straight with that. And then more recently, in the process of building out some AI tools to help lawyers run their practices more effectively.
Wonderful. That's great to know. On the LegalSoft side of things, we work with we have about 1,000 law firms as clients that we place, virtual staffing into those firms as a legal staff that are our staff working within the firms. And then a couple of years ago, we spin off a company called lawpractice.ai, which is basically all the AI tools that the law firm would need to eventually do anything from intake all the way to settlements. Happy to have this conversation with you. The marketing, that's what I started with. I was doing consulting. Half of my thing was about how to get the firm to do proper marketing and not just a billboard or bunch of radios and TV thinking they have a full marketing solution, which we both know that's not how it happens. And there was no tracking whatsoever. Every time I asked somebody, so what's your ROI? I'm like, what ROI? I get calls, And so I'm sure you faced a lot of those in the past where people just spending money and they get a call and they think things are going well. When the calls stop, they think things are going terrible.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, that was a big driver for us in writing and then finding a publisher for the book. I mean, the publisher kind of found us actually, but what we saw so much was lawyers are great at being lawyers, but figuring out how to be marketers and figuring out how to navigate SEO and now AI, there's just a lot of snake oil to be sold out there.
Right.
And it's a fertile field for that, and that's very frustrating to me. I have friends in the industry, I have friends who run great practices who are wonderful lawyers, and it's depressing to think that the person who needs their services can't find them or find someone who just is selling some snake oil. And so, as things were heating up in the SEO world, I was the general manager at an SEO company down in Texas years ago, about 20 years ago, and spun up a practice there. And I just saw so much BS in that space, right? Because, really what it boils down to is garbage in, garbage out. So if someone's feeding you, hey, here's a report and these numbers are green, we feel good.
Right.
It doesn't actually mean that people are doing what they're doing. So that was a big motive for us to write the book, to say, hey, here's something you can dive into. Here's some questions you can ask. Here's how you can hold people accountable. And we're seeing this. It's the same thing now with AI, right? People are putting the AI stamp on everything.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to be AI powered and AI informed. But the reality is that everybody got these same tools at the same time.
Yes. And they keep coming and they keep changing. And
they do.
It doesn't stop. So your focus, what type of law practices are your primary focus on? Imagine it's all plaintiff, but what kind of a practice type?
Yeah, it's almost all plaintiff. We work a lot in single incident, but we also have clients that are in family law, estate planning, some bankruptcy, business law. So we cover a pretty broad spectrum. And then the other side of our agency does a lot of work in the consulting space. So we do a lot of work in tax, audit, insurance, healthcare.
I see.
We've really kind of planted our flag in the highly regulated, more competitive spaces. That's where we function well. We have the infrastructure to support that. We've got a lawyer on our team who leads our compliance and content development, is our creative lead. So that's kind of where we operate.
So if I'm a personal injury firm, and I want to use your services. What specifically can you help your organization help me with?
Our focus is on the marketing side, but I find that the tools, the systems that we built, the tools that we use help across operations too, because I think it's a very blurred line where marketing stops and operations begins. Those two need to have a healthy handshake, where one moves into the other. So on the data side, we build systems to capture all of the marketing data streams into a data warehouse. So Google Analytics, Google My Business, Search Console, Facebook, Instagram, we suck up all that data. We load that into a data warehouse, and then we use that to inform our decisions. And so on the execution side, we're doing content development, SEO, prep for kind of the new AI world. And we're building things, using AI. We've built Longest Tail. We've built our Clearboard solution. So we've been operating kind of in the trenches, building things to also help there. So bread and butter, digital marketing for law firms, just like the book. But, we tend to go pretty deeply there. And we put a lot of weight into our reporting solutions because that's ultimately what keeps us all honest.
I see. So if I'm a law firm and I'm using 8 or 9 different sources to produce my traffic or my clients, so usually it's Meta, Google, organic, maybe email campaign, maybe even sometimes a display campaign, being a billboard or West Point, with the tracking numbers. So all the traffic that comes from those platforms goes into your system, and then you analyzing the data and giving me instructions to where to increase my budget on certain things or switch or cut. Or so is that how is that a simple explanation?
Yeah, I think so. I think we encounter this fallacy often that a marketing team, a marketing company is doing well or doing poorly when we see things move in one direction or another. And there certainly can be some truth to that, but I think more, we're dealing with a more complex world than a simple kind of binary, things are going well and things are going poorly, just like you said earlier. And so we have tried to build systems that measure what is the competitive space around us. What are your competitors doing? If someone just made a big investment on billboards and you had the billboard market cornered, but they spend more than you, they've got more visibility. And so even if your creative team is doing a great job on your creative, they're doing a great job on your media buy, you're getting your money's worth, you could still be outspent. And now you look at the results because you're only looking at your own marketing data. You say, well, the marketing team's not working. The flip side is the marketing team might not be working, right, but somebody else could just be underperforming in the market and you're doing great. So really trying to understand what is the competitive landscape, what are the opportunities, and that changes month to month. And so what we do our best to do, and I think that user tracking and things like that will never be perfect. So there will never be a perfect attribution line throughout every single case that gets signed. But what we strive to do is we strive to track users through every stage, right? Tracking numbers, cookies, trackers, things like that. We pull all that data into a data warehouse, and then we leverage AI within that data warehouse to provide the answers to some of those questions. So the system that we have built, we call Clearboard, it gives you the ability to use generative AI to query your own data. And that's such a dramatic change from a couple of years ago where, you could pull your data in a data warehouse, you could pull it into Power BI or Tableau, and using a data scientist or an analyst, they could write the queries in SQL to give you the answers.
Right.
But with our solution, we're able to use generative AI to write the query. And that happens all behind the scenes. For the user, they go in and they ask a question. They can say, why did my intakes sign more clients in December versus June? And the system will write the SQL in the background, will restate your question and say, here's the data that I'm showing you. And then it will tell the story. And correlation does not equal causation, but it's going to find those correlative events to say, your Facebook was performing like this. We pulled in some competitor data that looks at this, and this is where you had opportunity. So identifying those pockets of opportunity, I think, is going to remain incredibly important. And that's a thing that AI is going to struggle to keep up with because AI can't do that real-time analysis. It can do some search and things like that, and maybe that's an area that will start to deplete. over time as it gains in advancement. But for the time being, that strategy and that identification of opportunity that happens in the market is where I think it's important to lean in and invest.
So if I'm a PI firm in Los Angeles, for example, what size of a firm would be my primary target? I mean, we got solo practitioners who probably have one source of leads versus a much larger organization. I have a firm that has about 64 different lead sources.
Yeah.
So there's a huge team of people just handling that. So what's the sweet spot? What's the starting point of the firm? Like to me, for example, those things that starts when the firm starts to spending 100K plus a month on the ad campaign.
Yeah.
And then it goes up from there.
I mean, we tend to start a little smaller than that. You know, we've got a firm that's got maybe 20,000 a month or so in spend and on up from there. Our systems work better with more data, right? So if you have 60 lead sources, you're going to get more usable data analysis out of our system than you would if you have a smaller footprint. It's less budget dependent and more channel dependent. So the more channels you could pull in, the more channels that we could pull data from, the more we can utilize the AI to identify patterns that a human might not catch.
I see. So does your system goes and figures out my 10 closest competitors in my market, in my area, and identifies what they're doing or how they're doing and so forth, and does a competitive analysis between that and give me the information, or it only focuses on my stuff?
I mean, the data warehouse is going to pull in data from your stuff.
Right.
You know, the size of the data warehouse, if we pulled in larger data sets that encompassed a market, would be considerable. And so the data warehouse is pulling in your data. And we could pull in some feeds from some other things too. You know, our team uses then a number of different tools to create that competitive analysis to see what opportunities are there. And so really, you know, it's kind of the human. I always think of the most successful AI integrations are that human AI hybrid, right?
Right.
And I think you've talked about that before. You know, pairing those two things. So where the human comes in, and there's a couple different models that we're playing with here, but where the human comes in is that analysis, pulling some reports, you know, using some tools like Ahrefs, SEMrush, some of the other tools that are out there to query what is going on in the market, and then compiling that and understanding what's happening there. Sometimes we feed that into our AI to get, you know, summaries and get direction there, but then couple that with your data warehouse, which is pulling in all of your marketing data.
So if I'm spending, let's say, $30,000 a month on my ad spend, and I'm getting cost of client acquisition of $1,000, which I'm getting, you know, 30 clients for my 30,000, what should I expect the improvement to be doing it ad hoc like I've been doing it versus doing it with your system? How much of improvement should I expect to get using a sophisticated system like yours?
That's a good question. It's very hard to quantify, right? You know, because things change very quickly and they change on a day by day basis. So my expectation is in the initial month, you'd see a single digit, double digit improvement, but it's hard to quantify beyond that because the market changes very quickly.
Right, sure. No, I know nothing can be specific in marketing. It is just like a stock market is crashing one minute and is climbing the next minute. But when people want to invest into technologies or enhancements or the tools, they want to see like what is my upside? Am I going to save 5,000 a month, 10,000 a month, or 1,500? So that's why I was asking for that questions.
No, and it's a great question. I mean, I could tell you that, you know, if we look at market data around cost per acquisition averaged out across the firm, I mean, our firms are operating at probably about 60 to 70% lower on the average cost per acquisition from what we see in the market.
Right.
So I think that's pretty good, but that's going to be on a client by client basis, right? And then it depends on what you incorporate in the marketing budget versus non-marketing budget. But you know, the data that I see out there, the cost per acquisition more often leans in the $1,900 to $3,500 per signed client range.
Right.
You know, we're able to operate significantly below that. And again, it depends on the market. It depends on many different things.
Sure.
So a very competitive market like San Antonio, for example, we can outperform the market very, very effectively because we're able to use that data to be more efficient. Some less competitive markets, we may not be able to have as much of an impact because the pool is smaller, and the
Right.
advertisers and marketing in that space, are already kind of in their respective corners. So we can only eke out so much. But we do better in our competitive.
What's your pricing model like?
Pricing model generally is on a per client and then function base, and then also per stream, right? So how many data streams are we pulling in? Normally we're looking at probably about 5 to 8 data streams that we're pulling in an average firm. If there are a number more than that, then there's an additional cost that creeps up there. But for the analysis, for the analytics side, it's relatively inexpensive. People can kind of dip their toe in the water for around $500 a month, and then some of the additional like Spot IQ and things like that really allow the more conversational elements that starts to creep up from there. But but as you add more data points and as you add more data streams, then the cost can go up. So I think we're including five or eight data streams at the outset.
I see.
But that gets GA4, Search Console, My Business, usually case management, depending on what the case management is, and assuming the case management has a decently documented API, or a way to sync up the data.
Sure. And does your system has also open API for integration with other systems?
I believe so. I'd have to turn to the technical team there. Normally, we're pulling our data in, and we've built this, alongside partners as well. And the partners that we built with are going to have open APIs. So it should be able to be pulled in. I mean, we're working with a couple of different solution providers right now. We've built our own platform to house the data output here.
Right.
But then we've also partnered with another company that has kind of pre-built that already. And so when you're talking the data and the data streams, that can get ported to anything.
I
When you're
see.
talking about the dashboards and things like that, I mean, some of those are custom built, and so less applicable on the API side. But yes, I mean, the answer is yes, there's a way to do it.
On the law practice AI the platform that we're building, it is focuses anywhere from the initial area that you're talking about. That's what we're looking some partnerships with,
Hmm.
integrating with the tools like yourself. We don't have to invent everything in house. I believer of I worked 20 years in Silicon Valley, and we learned that no, you can use other technologies. You don't have to reinvent the wheel 10 times over. So anywhere from we want to make it possible for a law firm to have one place to go to that is going to do all of his AI implementation through the entire firm. So if it's from lead creations, optimizing the lead creations, optimizing the target audience, the messaging, the graphics, do the analysis, and then let them know where they need to go spend more money or not spend money on there. And then going all the way into the intake to the automated AI intake, because you're seeing in the marketing side too, people think that because they just pay the ad campaign, they're going to get signed up clients. It's like they look like they're going to grocery stores and buying milk. It doesn't work like that. Digital marketing companies just going to generate it, but you have to convert it. So we're doing extensive intake via both our virtual staffing through LegalSoft and also AI intake to be able to convert those qualified leads into the clients. Then going it all the way to document collection, document analysis, demand writings and settlements calculations and so forth. So we're trying to create one single platform where um, basically lawyers don't need to figure out 15 different things, even though even this platform would be a combination of 6 qualified technologies and companies integrated into one dashboard, but only go to one place. Because in the early days when I was trying to convert the firms to move from Google Drive folders into CRMs like FileMine, Clio, Litify, those guys, they were like, even this is too complicated. Some of them took like a 5, 6, 7 years to even migrate to a CRM. So I can imagine now telling them to go check out 8 different AI technologies and find out which one works for them. So I'm trying to solve that problem, not having to go so many places, because we have both law background and a tech background in our company, and we help people on both sides. So that's our intention, and that's why we speaking with companies like yours to see what part of a problem can your company solve, because the problem is pretty big. in many, many areas, and it gets getting worse. I just came up from a conference in San Diego where there was like a 15, 20 AI companies that popped up first time in the conference. And even though I have extensive, you know, I came from data mining, data warehousing for people like IBM and Sun Microsystem and so forth. Even me, I had a hard time to figure out what the heck are they talking about, you know?
Well, there's a credibility problem in that space already, right? You know, I mean, like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of snake oil, and you can say anything is AI, you
Yes.
know, and we've experienced that. I mean, we were talking to a vendor, you know, a little over a year ago, and they were pitching an AI driven solution. Well, it turns out the AI driven solution was outsourced virtual assistants who were typing into ChatGPT.
Yeah, we did the same thing actually. We found out one of our largest competitor is taking them 6 days average to produce an AI document. So for those of us who know the AI, that can't be. I mean, unless they're calculating the GPD of United States or something like that. And then we found out that they had a whole bunch of staff overseas that are just doing it manually. But when it comes out, so even that stuff still happens. That's one thing. The second thing is that a lot of them, like you said, they're just using ChatGPT directly, no add value, no analysis, no extra data for learning. ChatGPT out, and they say, here it is. It's this, which me and you call it the wrap.
Yeah,
So it's the ChatGPT wraps.
yeah, yeah. Now that's what this vendor was doing. It was they were kind of pitching a content generation, an AI driven content generation solution, and what it was here's the firm, here are their practice areas. There's a virtual assistant who's taking some ideas, popping them into ChatGPT, generating the content, and posting it to WordPress. And it's like, well, I mean, you could do that, I guess, but um, you know, obviously, it's not what people are signing up for.
no,
So I think,
it's not AI. It's really not AI because in the late, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago, I was doing data mining for uh, and decision support and data warehousing, which there
hmm
was no AI. Our AI was a bunch of scientists with algorithms in the basement running the algorithm that the AI does now, and very sophisticated. But nowadays, it's not like that. So, no, I definitely see the point. I think um, those of us who can actually team up and clear it up for the average person being the lawyer and says, look, this is real AI, this is real value, and here's the demonstrated value and the demonstrated outcome. And we hooked up 7 things together that we either built or integrated or API them up all. But now you can use it and you don't have to worry about where you get it from. So that's our mission.
that credibility gap is huge,
Right.
right? If you as an expert in the space can say, hey, this is a product, I know how it works, I understand how it's built, and it is credible, then that's something that I think people should take a look at.
Yeah.
You know, there are, and AI is feeding its own problem, right? It's creating its own problem
Yeah.
because there are vendors out there using AI to pitch a thing that is non-existent and it looks great,
Yeah.
but they come to find out it's not real,
Yeah. I
you
just saw a
know,
whole
and
bunch of them in the San Diego
every day.
conference. So,
Yeah.
Chip, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I feel like we could be talking about this for hours. We haven't even touched the surface of what's to come, not just what we got, which is probably 100 times more than what we got here. So, if people are looking for you, Chip, where should they find you?
I mean, they can always Google my name. That pops up pretty quickly. LaFleur.marketing is our website. You know, that's probably the easiest place to track us down. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all over the place. Any of those work.
Great. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully, we'll have a follow up session and our solutions are combined into a better solution for the folks, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Amit. I appreciate it. Great
Thank you.
talking to you.
This is Hamid Kohan. I'm president of LegalSoft and LawPractice.ai. Please visit the site if you need any information. We'll be happy to extend the information to you.